if you could explain what is the crack?
The crack. I suppose just a load of fun, like load of mess and kind of that sort of thing. Like that's what the crack would be like.
How can I have the crack? What's the crack?
What is the crack? You are the crack.
Welcome to the 4th episode of Audio Crack. We are here with a special guest, Barstool's own Dante the Don, probably one of the OG Barstool guys, OG Barstool DJ for the Blackout Tours, storied history with the company, storied history with everyone who's worked there, but also a like-minded individual like myself who has a little more curiosity for the world. And
that's exactly it.
Yeah, I hope you've been enjoying Audio Crack. We're on to 4 episodes in less than a week. So I think the first one was released on Friday. It is now Tuesday, and we released 3 episodes. We're going to slow down. We're figuring out what works, what not. But we have a lot of very interesting interviews coming up. Just landed a big one. Actually, sneak peek. It's a guy who is the absolute expert on the MH370 Malaysian Airlines flight disappearance. He does not believe the real story. He'll be coming on next week. Hopefully he's the first episode next week. And this
I can't wait to hear this, because what is the official story?
The official story is the pilot took the plane, sent it into the ocean. No one knows where it went. So, but this guy has some serious evidence. He's debunked that a lot of his evidence is a hoax throughout various different means. He has some crazy footage of what looks like UFOs going around the flight before it disappears. I'm really excited for that episode. I'm going to try to steel man some of his claims. It's going to be, a lot of the stuff he says, like, I'm going to put up a front, but like a lot of it is extremely convincing, and I cannot wait to get into it.
Nothing will surprise me with that story, because at first, for months, the report was the plane literally disappeared.
Yeah.
There was no wreckage found. It went off the radars. It literally, people thought it vanished into like a portal or something like that.
I mean, the weirdest stuff from it, which really got my attention with this guy, was the passage of power between different Malaysian presidents. I think prime ministers, their interaction with the Obama administration. And that's where I was like, wait a second. This guy who questioned where the plane went as president of the country suddenly just disappears. Aid disappears. The Obama administration cuts off aid to Malaysia. There's some weird stuff, and I cannot wait to get into it.
I didn't even know about that. That'll be a good one to listen to.
And this guy knows his stuff. Let me bump him real quick and get his exact Twitter, so people who are interested can look at it. Actually, no, I'm not, because I want you to come listen to the episode.
Yeah, don't.
Secrets of Starting a Podcast. But Dante, thank you so much for coming on. Didn't know you were going to be in New York. Great that you're here, and had to get you on the podcast because you were an amazing contributor to my old podcast that I used to be a part of, and I always wanted you to come on. Now I can have you on whenever I want.
Nice. Thanks, man.
So today we're going to be discussing, if you haven't heard, I like to call them the Boeing Assassinations. We might have to workshop that title just for our own personal safety. But Boeing, the company, has been going through some troubles recently, and we're going to get to the exact ones. But 2 whistleblowers from Boeing recently, within, I guess, a 2-week time frame, both of them right before they were about to testify, died of mysterious circumstances. One guy died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound the night before he was supposed to testify. Another guy died from a mysterious pathogen that destroyed his respiratory system in a record time. Like, this guy died like how people were describing COVID to kill people in China when it first came around. Like, doctors dying within, a week, or doctors dying within 2 days or something. It's some pretty wild stuff. But first off,
and the best was they said it was MRSA, which is a very common thing that I guess it's a notch below staph infection. People contract it all the time, live, but that's the official story that they're going with.
I mean, it's crazy. But first, Dante, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to get into current events-wise. But
right before we just did the rundown, and right before we went on, I was doing some research for this because I want to sound like I know what I'm talking about somewhat. And front and center, another FAA investigation is being opened against Boeing, not for the 737.
Yeah, which has been most of the problems recently.
Which is the MAX, but this is the 787, the Dreamliner, the big boy.
Oh my God.
So now they're saying that there's problems with this, and the inspection process was rushed for all of them. So it's just across the board, which is no surprise if you know the root of all Boeing's problems. This is something that should come as no surprise to anybody. They've just been cutting corners for years now and putting quality low on the totem pole over pretty much everything. They've been rushing production.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, standards have dropped across the board with a lot of American products. You know, the Occam's razor of it, right, is the simplest reason is the reason. And basically by trying to raise profits, cut costs, is probably the source of a lot of this happening. And, you know, Boeing is a duopoly, meaning they're only one of two companies that make large-scale commercial liners. But before we get into that, there's one thing I wanted to talk about, and it's that orangutans in the wild, it first recorded instance of an animal using a plant to heal its own injury. So this orangutan had a cut out of its face, probably from a fight with another orangutan, but he was seen using a chewed plant known to have pain-relieving and healing properties and rubbed the juice on his open wound and then used the leaves as poultice to cover his injury. So basically, orangutans have gotten to the point, and I've heard about this, they've been seen spearfishing. Some people are saying they're in the quote-unquote Stone Age already, where they're using tools to get food, and they've started to do medicine. So this really kind of shifts the timeline of humanity's evolution, of where humanity sort of, when Homo sapien, Homo erectus started to do certain things, because we're seeing what we see as a very low-level primate doing things that we thought only civilized man or up to like Homo Neanderthal did. But we're seeing it right now. We're seeing evolution right in front of our eyes. It's insane.
I know nothing about biology and anthropology and all that. But yeah, I blogged that story, and I blogged it from the angle, like, I don't understand why scientists, namely, are so surprised by this. I mean, I feel like animals are way smarter than we give them credit for.
Oh yeah, but most of the stuff they do is instinctual, right? So like if a homing pigeon's flying back to where it was taken from, it's using supernatural almost ways to find its way back home. So like when you're using messenger pigeons in World War II, because that was great for spies behind enemy lines,
Mm-hmm.
you'd literally just have a pigeon in your pocket. Pigeons are domesticated. They suck at surviving by themselves. Like they literally don't know how to make nests sometimes, but they have this supernatural ability to home back to where they were raised or where they were roosting. And this seems like it's a second level of intelligence. I mean, I guess if you know what plants you can eat, you might have the intelligence to know what plants you put on your face. But, I mean, maybe it's one of those things where, like, if you bite into an ibuprofen, your mouth goes numb.
No, they said the plant disinfects, and it's basically like kind of like aloe, where it'll heal. Like it's Neosporin. It's like basically Neosporin.
Yeah,
is what the orangutan did, and then he let it stick on there like a bandage. So again, I don't know. I'm more blown away by the stuff that's come out about the languages and the way these animals communicate. And I mean, I know we've known forever dolphins, can speak to each other and all that, but they're basically starting to learn that all these different species of animals have their own language, whether it's not verbal but audible or like sign language. That's the stuff that like blows my mind.
I mean, stuff like different whales from different oceans in different pods have different languages.
Wild,
and there's a
right?
variety. Yeah.
Wild.
And the
like
thing
dialects.
they have dialects, and they don't sometimes understand each other, but they
Yep.
kind of can, just like humans.
Just like humans.
And I think we're currently studying a certain pod's dialect in the hopes that we can talk to the whale.
Nuts.
So we're trying to, like, the plan is and this was something I read in an article, I can't pinpoint it. The plan is to have a diver go down, specifically a female diver. I don't know why. To communicate because they know the word for mother. They've figured out what mother is in this pod's whale language.
No way.
Probably actually why they're having a female, because they want to then tell the whales that this female diver is a mother, because they can hear what baby whales are communicating to their mother. That's a pretty constant. You could say, what is this one word that all these baby whales are saying to their mother? And it's like, oh, it's probably mama. So then try to communicate that to the whale, like mama, like family, and see how they react.
That's so cool.
I mean, that's kind of like an alien species. I mean, we do live side by side by whales. The whales may have a concept that we exist, or they might be infrequent, like we see with UFOs, where if like a UFO came down and just started playing like how a baby says mama, that would be freaky as hell.
Yeah, what?
That would be freaky as hell.
What?
So they're thinking, like, so the researchers like, yeah, they'll understand that we're of kin. And then I was thinking about it, I was like, well, it would be like if aliens came down and just beamed like in big speakers like over New York City, like mama,
Like,
mama, like that would be creepy as fuck, because they would definitely do it in a baby voice.
Yeah, it would.
And it would be like, oh my God, what, like, and then they'd probably think that they're not referring to, like, I don't know. That would be freaky as hell. So I don't know how that's gonna go down with this random whale pod that they've been studying and breaking down their dialect. But I don't think it'll go well. I think it would be better to like figure out orca whale dialect and like talk to domestic orca whales, because they might be. I mean, I know that's a bad vibes with blackfish, but
I think whales know and have known for centuries that humans are fucking terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, we've killed and hunted whales since the beginning of time, basically. I don't know if it's the Japanese or Chinese, they still hunt the shit out of them.
Yeah.
That those killings that they do are awful, awful, awful. And I don't know. I think that we've been their enemy for so long. I mean, we imprison them in SeaWorlds and all that. I mean, I don't see any reason why whales would be like,
chill.
Humans come in peace. Let's communicate with them.
Orcas are sneaky nice to humans. There used to be like they used to talk about in the South Pacific that amongst a certain, I think Polynesian group, that they would hunt in unison with the orca whales. So they would go after large whales, and the killer whales are not called killer whales because they're whales that kill. It's because they kill whales, like large whales. So there used to be a treaty of the whale that was broken at some point, and people don't know why, but a storied relationship between orca whales and humans where they would hunt larger whales together, much like dogs and humans sort of evolved together to hunt.
Did not know that.
Like,
I thought it was because they kill sharks.
Yeah, and orcas have never been recorded to kill people in the wild.
But there was that thing last year where that pack was like sinking boats and shit. And
yes,
that was nuts.
So they're fighting back. That's where I'm saying, like, the pact with the orcas is officially done. So, I mean, I could go on about whales for hours. I mean, the breeding, whales also can take, like, we know very little about whales because much of the time they spend is just so far underwater. Mm-hmm. Their breeding is like the first blue whale breeding ever seen was 2 dudes. The first mating ritual was seen between 2 dudes, and the researchers like, oh, and they're like, wait, there's 2? But we talked about that on the first episode of Audio Crack. Moving on, what are your thoughts about? I'm just looking at some of the stuff you've blogged recently, seeing if you wanted to talk about any of it, but we can just jump right in to the Boeing company and subsequently the whistleblowers that have died. So the Boeing company has a rich history dating back to 1916 when it was founded by William E. Boeing in Seattle, Washington. Originally named the Pacific Aero Products Company, it was later renamed to Boeing Airplane Company in 1917. In the early years, like a lot of U.S. manufacturing, Boeing focused on building military aircraft for World War I, including the Model II seaplane. After the war, it diversified into furniture and boat manufacturing to stay afloat. In the 1920s, Boeing began producing mail planes and fighters for the U.S. Army Air Service. World War II, Boeing played a pivotal role by manufacturing the iconic B-17 Flying Fortress and the B-29 Superfortress bombers. Those things won us the war. That won us the war in Europe, and we were bombing the hell out of Japan even before the atom bombs, and a B-29 dropped the atom bomb. After the war, it continued developing military aircraft like the B-52 bomber, and also ventured into commercial.
And that was at a time where you couldn't necessarily go and buy planes from another country. They had to be made in America for the U.S. military to use. Yeah.
Yes, it was a B-29 that dropped the little boy bomb. I think it was a B-29 that dropped the big boy. I might be wrong on that, but it was a B-29. So they started then, after the war, they knew how to build planes that carried super heavy cargo, and they knew how to build them well. So in 1958, first they ventured into commercial jetliners with the successful 707 in 1958, followed by the 727, 737.
That's when the commercial airline industry blew up.
And 747.
Terrible use of blowing up. But that's when flying became economical, and people were able to do it, and airlines started, and Boeing kind of, jettisoned that, and also, grew because of that, and became basically the company it was up until the merger. But you'll get to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. The Boeing plane, right? Remember when you used to watch 1950s flight commercials?
Oh, how beautiful everybody looked and dressed up, and there were carving stations going, it looked like the Kentucky Derby, boxes at the Derby.
I mean, I wish there was an option where you could pay for that. If you're taking a super long flight. That might be something a lot of people pay up for. I don't know, trains are pretty luxurious compared to airplanes, but imagine what trains were like back then.
The other wild thing about back then is you could smoke on planes.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid first starting to fly, not even as a kid, up until a few years ago, there were still planes in circulation that had ashtrays on the armrests and the no smoking signs. No shit, you can't smoke, but people once upon a time could smoke on planes, which blows my fucking mind.
Must have been fun. So in the 1960s, Boeing expanded into the space program, building the first stage of the Saturn V rockets and lunar rovers for NASA's Apollo missions. It later became the prime contractor for the International Space Station. Through acquisitions like McDonnell Douglas in 1997, Boeing grew into the largest aerospace company globally. Over its century-long history, Boeing has been at the forefront of aviation innovation, pioneering new technologies and aircraft designs that have revolutionized air travel and, most important to this story, defense capabilities.
That's what ruined them, though. That merger with McConnell is what started the snowball or domino effect of where we're at today.
I mean, so Boeing is one of two companies. It's a unique duopoly. One of only two manufacturers.
The other being Airbus.
Yes, Airbus.
In Great Britain.
Are they French?
UK, I think.
Okay. So that means there's only two places you can buy planes this big, and that's honestly, when you look at the market of how many places buy planes that big, no one owns a private 737. Do they? I mean, I think the amount of buyers in the world is probably very, very small to the amount that where it's a duopoly isn't that crazy, but with that, they know they only have one competitor, so they can those two competitors can lean on each other when they want to price gouge, set standards, and all that type of stuff. So they've been running some problems recently. So over the past 2 years, since 2019, Boeing's stock has dropped $32 billion in that it went from $424 a stock to $177 a stock.
25%.
25%. So according to FactSet, no other company in the S&P has lost that much money over the past 5 years. Only two, Uber and cruise line operator Carnival Corp, have even come close, and that's because of the COVID. Yeah. So,
COVID was Carnival. Uber has never turned a profit since it's been public, but
they're just waiting to have robots drive the cars.
Exactly.
So like, why is this happening? Boeing has a backlog of orders of more than 5,600 commercial jets worth $529 billion.
Wow, I did not know that.
That is years worth of orders. The problem is that Boeing has had to reduce its pace so much to address quality issues. It cannot make enough planes a year to turn a profit. So, why has there been all these issues? There's been numerous mechanical failures and incidents involving Boeing planes in the past 2 years. So there used to be around 1 to 2 incidents per month over the past decade. Statistically, there has been so many more incidents, around 3. So in 2024 alone, the FAA has documented around 3 accidents, incidents, or occurrences per month. It used to be in the past decade 1 to 2. And the amount of planes in service isn't that different. Like, it's not the ratio in the amount of planes that are being added is not equivalent to the amount of accidents change we're seeing. So like 1 to 2, let's say 1.5 to 3, so like double the accidents. We're not seeing double the planes in the sky. So there are several high-profile incidents, such as the doors blowing out on an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 in January 2024, which led to a temporary grounding, a 777 losing a tire in March 2024, and a 737 sliding off the runway in Houston in March of 2024. So there is a long list of previous 737 accidents and incidents dating back decades, including 2 fatal 737 MAX crashes in 2018 and 2019 that led to a 20-month grounding. So there's a situation, and Boeing, the FAA is starting to look at Boeing. They're like, yo, wait a second, you guys have been the top of the line. We trusted you to like keep your standards up because you are the image of American excellency in manufacturing. Most of America's manufacturing, large scale, has been stuff like planes, stuff that takes high tech and needs highly skilled workers. We have been the front line of building those stuff for the past 100 years.
Right.
So a lot of people are like, in government, even though the government does not take quality control as seriously as it should, are like, yo, guys, like, what's going on?
I think it comes down to, 1, they're the only show in town, and 2, they're in bed with the federal government. They have all these defense contracts. The FAA is supposed to be the watchdog, but it's all people from Boeing, basically, that know aviation, which I understand. I mean, America invented aviation, and
we've been to the goddamn moon.
Right.
Or at least convince people.
Right. So, I mean, Boeing was there at the beginning. They're still around. And there's no competition. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, what's the alternative? But you would hope that the federal government is looking out for us, the consumer and the little guy, and not doing what they need to make things easy and cost effective for the big guy.
So,
which is what has happened.
There's some theories that because U.S. manufacturing is mostly having to do with highly skilled workers building stuff like airplanes, building stuff like tanks, building stuff like sophisticated military equipment, there is some thought that there has been a conceited effort by foreign adversaries to try to make U.S. manufacturing look terrible and show that the U.S., this idea of maybe DEI causing standards to fall when it comes to manufacturing, and seed doubt into American manufacturing. Because look, hypothetically, when you think of made in China, does that give you the same feeling as made in America?
Fuck no.
So
wait, the complete opposite.
So hypothetically, would you want to get into a plane made in China?
No, sir.
So some are saying that because of causing, if hypothetically, China just came out with the Comac C919, which is virtually identical to the Boeing 737.
Obviously.
And was posed,
everything they produce is a straight ripoff.
So in order for them to sell this airplane, right, and think about it, there's a huge back order on Boeing. They're not able to keep up.
I see where you're going with this.
The element is
the parts that they're making for Boeing, they're purposely making like shit.
Exactly. Or
did not consider that, but
they're promoting
interesting
ideology and promoting the idea that, and maybe even possibly not hijacking, but booby trapping planes to make Boeing look bad, so that countries are like, well, there's been this many accidents on Boeing, we might as well start trying to buy some airlines.
Sabotage.
Yeah, buying the Comac 7919. So once, because the thing is, our manufacturing power throughout history, China has started to became, they industrialized, they took over the manufacturing of a lot of low expertise, low skilled work to build not as complicated items, cutlery, small things, electronics, but not electronics that need to
textiles,
be
big textiles,
toys,
clothing,
plastics. The U.S. always held strong to we have the best advanced manufacturing. A lot of people are thinking that Boeing's mishaps may either be attacks from the outside or foreign adversaries trying to demean their infrastructure, demean their checklist system in order to try to cause stuff to basically make Boeing look bad.
This is interesting because I think it goes a lot deeper than that. Somewhere along the line, and I don't know where it is, I think talking to a historian would be great to answer this question, but somewhere along the line there was this shift in mentality amongst Americans and consumers where I feel like back in the day, like my grandfather's day, it was all about quality in value for a great price. And I remember he used to brag to my aunts and uncles about I got these pair of jeans for $10 or whatever, and they've lasted me 20 years. That was a thing. Nowadays it's the complete opposite. It's how much you paid for something, even if it's shit quality. It's
right.
Oh, these cost me $300. They'll fall apart in a week, but I paid a shit ton for it. And it's almost like that's where the mentality is. Nobody really cares about quality anymore, and I think that's why we've allowed China to take over production of basically everything.
I mean, the Trans-Pacific Partnership might be something you can look to be once foreign manufacturing became so accessible to the United States, and a lot of American companies were able to take advantage of the cheaper labor overseas, there probably was stuff that influenced consumers, but quality products in something, what I think companies realized is that they can't make a large enough profit if they built stuff to last. So if you build a car that runs for 100 years, how many cars are you going to sell in that 100 years if everyone only needs one? So a lot of the older vehicles, they run hard, it's almost like newer cars are more likely to break down.
Yeah.
And need service. And because of that, if you get a pair of jeans that last you 20 years, Levi's isn't going to sell as many jeans. And the idea of old worn jeans are cool because it means you've worn them for a long time. Hey, you can buy these super expensive worn jeans that will fall apart, but you'll get that same vibe. So, and in buying cheaper products that need to be replaced more often is probably way more profitable for a company than if they sell one product that lasts 200 years.
Right, but I think there is obviously a huge difference between when we're talking about, electronics or, I don't know. I feel like automobiles are a pretty big fucking deal, like commercial aircraft. Like, you're talking about lives. You're not talking about fashion. You're not talking about, my home stereo. You're talking about people take this for transportation, and if something goes wrong, people die. So that was our big thing. Chief Eddie and I did a dog walk a few years ago during COVID. Netflix came out with an awesome documentary, and it was almost kind of eerie how early they were to the party on this. It was called Downfall, and it was about those two fatal crashes you talked about. And they did an awesome job illustrating what an unbelievable and proud company Boeing was prior to that McConnell-Douglas merger. It was Seattle-based. Best talent in the country would, find their way to Seattle to work for this company. A lot coming from Stanford. But the people that worked there were proud to be Americans, proud to produce aircraft for America, proud to produce aircraft that America sold to other countries saying made in America. And it was literally the sharpest minds in the world working there. And then you have this merger, and this board comes in, and all of a sudden it's all corporate suits who know nothing about the science behind aviation. They're finance guys, and they start there's this great book, When McKinsey Comes to Town, and it is about a real consultant agency that gets hired by all these huge corporations, and they're famous for increasing profit share and revenue. And what they do is they come into these big companies, usually after mergers and acquisitions, and they just gut them. And they say, let us see the salaries of everybody here. What does this person do? What does this person do? What does this person do? Okay, well, why can't this person do this job and this person's job? Why can't these people in this department be replaced by newer people? They gut these companies personnel-wise. Then they start looking at, the P&Ls. And then they start looking at, okay, well, the cost of goods here is gigantic. How can we trim that down even a little bit? 1% compounded over, 20 years, equals X. So it's basically what happened here. These guys came in, they moved the company headquarters to Chicago. I go by their office every day. They're right on the river in the West Loop, or in the Loop. And, they built this big skyscraper, and that's where all the shot callers were. Meanwhile, they left the plant back in Seattle. And the engineers that worked for the company, they started complaining. They were like, hey, this is not a recipe for success. This is kind of rolling the dice on things. We have people giving us instructions that don't know what they're talking about, and shouldn't be dictating to us how things are done. And they were told shut the fuck up or find a new job. Whistleblowers started stepping up, saying, hey, what we're doing now, a lot of it was wiring, a lot of it was electronic early on. They were saying we're using parts that we shouldn't be using on these things. They were fired. They were being rushed schedule-wise. They were being told, these processes need to be turned around in a third of the amount of time. people were saying like, whoa, stuff's gonna like fall through the cracks if we do that, and they were like, we don't give a fuck. So that's what started happening in the 90s and 2000s, and then it's kind of like here we are now. Once the 737 Max thing hit the market and the whole MCAS software thing, which we'll get to, that was like the least surprising thing in the fucking world when you look at what led up to it.
I mean, the best way to like have a microcosm of this larger problem is, when you find like a local product, say Dots Pretzels out of South Dakota, right?
Dude, you're speaking my language. That's my girl.
Yeah. So Dots Pretzels, right? Like,
they're terrible now.
Right, because guess what happened?
Nestle bought them.
They got bought out. Those people who, the people who care about increasing the share price and increasing, the stock price of the company, they come in, they nerf them.
Let's use cheaper ingredients.
Right. Take away the love,
Yep.
overproduce, like find better ways to deliver them. So, for example, they used to only be in huge bags. Now they're making little bags that they can sell better. And Dots, they've lost a lot of quality.
Yep.
And that is what we're seeing in, mergers and acquisitions. Nestle buys Dots, mergers and acquisitions. Boeing merges with McDonnell Douglas,
who, like you said, was famous for military and defense technology.
Yeah, defense contracting. So when you look at that, you're going to see the same process. The planes are going to taste shittier, and I'm using that as a Dots reference. Like the quality is going to go down, the production's going to go up, and they're going to try to increase sales and just increase the bottom line instead at the sacrifice of so much American ingenuity and American exceptionalism that brought them to that place. Just straight up gutting the joint.
And safety. I mean, again, it's not like Dots. I'm heartbroken because it was such a great, snack, and whatever. I don't like them as much anymore, but there's other fucking pretzels I can go buy.
Yeah.
You can't fly
in
America and know what you're getting onto and avoid Boeing.
Yeah. I mean, Airbus is also backed up by like 6,000 orders. So that's where someone like China goes like, okay, we could fulfill a bunch of these orders with our shitty plane, which is notoriously shitty. How do we get people to think Boeing is shitty enough to buy our plane? So there might have been multiple different
what's an interesting fact, which I didn't know until I started getting in the muck with this Boeing shit? You know who is one of the biggest producers of the engines for airplanes?
I know this. It's a company you wouldn't expect.
Rolls-Royce.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Spitfire. The Spitfire, if you know your planes, shout out PFT, he gatekeeps knowing planes, but the Spitfire was one of the greatest fighter planes in World War II of all time. And it was because it had a Rolls-Royce engine, and Americans were like, yo, like, England, give us some of the tech. We're allies now. We can make this much faster than you can. And put it in all their planes.
Did not know that.
Insane.
That is pretty cool.
But there's also something like, there's other companies that you wouldn't think, like not Rubbermaid, but Ball mason jars are like a crazy military production company that makes like bombs. Wait, let me get the exacts on that. And I think this is going to play into our next stuff, which is how large the military industrial complex is, how much is at stake, how much money is at stake, because look, $32 billion, dude, people would easily kill people for buy.
All right, so that's my whole thing with this is I understand everyone wants to make money. I totally get that. Everyone likes money. Money's important. And you don't buy another company or merge with another company to lose money. You want to turn a profit. It's all about ROI. I totally get that. That said, had these guys known that this shitstorm was going to unfold by them trying to penny pinch and cut corners and all that, and they were going to lose as much market share as they've lost. Don't you think they would have decided differently?
Yeah.
And this happens time and time and time again. We see it over and over and over. So why are people so greedy that they ignore like history and warning signs like this?
I mean, I think they neglect history because they see the green in front of their face. Like, I guess it's the best way to sway, but so like Ball is actually huge in the aerospace industry. So they help make a lot of satellite stuff. I guess
Never
glass.
knew that.
Yeah, glass works, avionics, aerospace systems, and metal, beverage, and food containers.
No shit.
Yeah.
Where are they based out of?
Glass production in Muncie, season 1962. They are based out of Westminster, Colorado.
Nice.
So yeah, space manufacturing. So this is actually fun. Companies that make military weapons.
We've got a big one in Massachusetts. I grew up by it. It's Raytheon.
Yeah.
There's a giant Raytheon plant that I actually, some friends' families work for them.
Yeah. Honeywell, military arms supplies engine parts.
Really?
For the Abrams M1 main battle
The
tank.
thermostat company?
Yes.
No shit.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean Honeywell. We can look into more of those, but it's insane. Ball comes to mind. So Boeing is at the forefront of getting military contracts. They're a very important company to U.S. foreign policy. So there's just so much more at stake than say a Dots Pretzels when these guys come in and gut a company. So this whole stuff has come up. There's been an investigation launched, I think through the FAA, and whistleblowers who are on the front lines of building these planes have come forward.
And the DOJ is involved. The
Yes,
Department of Justice is involved. They were involved with the John Barnett shit going on. The first guy that died.
Yeah.
Mysteriously, who got suicided.
Yeah. I mean, so some of the guys who have already testified, this guy, Sam Salapur, a Boeing quality engineer, testified that over 1,000 Boeing 787 and 777 planes have structural defects that could lead to in-flight disintegration. He found gaps between plane parts were not properly filled 98.7% of the time, allowing debris entry that risks fire. On 777s, he witnessed workers jumping on misaligned fuselage sections to force them together. That's fucking terrifying.
Terrifying, dude.
Like someone jumping on I get it. Sometimes when you're building something, you got to use a little elbow grease, use a little brute force to get it in there.
Well, dude, speaking of grease, the FAA, their first kind of question that they asked Boeing, and this is the Federal Aviation Association, whose job it is basically like the FDA approves food and drugs and what can be on store shelves. The FAA approves, okay, this plane's good to go. Yeah. I don't know if it was just like a pop-in or a check-up or whatever, but they saw that installers were using Dawn dish soap and hotel key cards on the doors, like the, what do you call it? Like the joint?
The handle?
The
hinge. The hinge.
Hinges of the doors to see, and it was funny. I included this in one of my blogs, and somebody reached out to me that works in a plant and was like, "Hey, just so you know, it's not that uncommon. Dawn's actually really good for finding like leaks." So I guess what they were doing is they were like putting the dish soap on there. They were using the key card to like
push it through
the joints, and then they would seal the door and have like a fan or a blower on the other side and see if you could see like bubbles come through.
Right.
To see or whatever. So the FAA comes around and sees them doing this and is like, I don't think that's really the best thing. And they were told like, stand down, like, it's fine, it's what we do. but again, you feel like, it's the company producing the things telling the people that are checking up on them how things go, and not the other way around.
Yeah.
Which I think is how you get there, is by, I mean, we're going to go way off track here, but lobbying.
Yeah.
These people shifting between Boeing's board and Congress and Capitol Hill lobbying firms and back to Boeing's board. And it's just like everything else. These guys are all fucking the friends. They're all at the same country clubs. They're all at the same dinners. I mean, they all work together.
I just finished a run for Congress today. Announced it. And basically, while running for Congress, you look up, what the hell does a congressman do? What takes up the bulk of their day? And most of the time, besides when they're trying to prep for a vote to read a bill, they are outside of their office, meeting with lobbyists, hearing what they want done in exchange for money. And part of the reason I had to drop out of my congressional run was that I was being faced with a court case by an establishment, a party establishment that did not want me to be their guy in the race. And they basically threw as much resources as they could to make sure that they just could outspend me. And I raised a good chunk of change, but I could not proceed legally because I couldn't in good faith go to people and ask for money.
A tactic is old as time.
Yeah.
That people with money will just bury you in legal and, drive you till you're broke.
So when you see that...
It's a catch-22, though, on Capitol Hill. Like, you need money to run for office and stay in office, and you get money by, doing favors for...
lobbyists, putting stuff in bills.
And around we go.
Giving contracts to Boeing. Oh, how many contracts are you going to give us at Boeing? We'll let you sit on the board and get a huge payout after you're done with Congress. I mean, that's a honey trail. That's a gravy train. So there's another whistleblower, Ed Pearson, a former Boeing engineer, accused the company of a criminal cover-up by withholding documents from investigators probing the mid-air door detachment on an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX flight. He cited over 1,200 system malfunction incidents on MAX jets just with Alaska Airlines. So,
That's scary shit, man.
The whistleblowers also were saying these things and were criticizing Boeing for ignoring their concerns and the FAA for lax oversight, alleging a cozy relationship between the regulators and Boeing. They claimed a poor safety culture persisted at Boeing despite assertions of reform after the 737 MAX crashes. So, I mean, a lot of people are wondering why this is happening. Boeing was punishing individuals who reported safety concerns, and there's this entire shit show that's going on at Boeing, and people are wondering, like, Boeing stock is tanking, they're losing market share. China is probably just being an opportunist, but through as many ways as they can, promoting the downfall of Boeing, and we are not including that. We're shitting on Boeing right now because we want them to get better. It's just constructive criticism. But now we have two men dead who were about to testify about Boeing. And who knows what they were about to say? Who knows what they were about to leak to the public through whistleblowing about what Boeing is involved in?
So the John Barnett death is just so shady to me. The reason I didn't want to call this... or I laughed when you said the Boeing Assassinations is I'm legit fucking scared of Boeing, dude. Like,
yeah,
they, like you said, it's a lot of money we're talking about. It's not peanuts, and kill somebody over half that much money.
Well, $32 billion, a 32nd of that money.
Yeah,
people kill each other.
Exactly.
32nd, a 32,000th of that money.
So I mean, people love to say I'm fucking crazy. I laugh because I don't doubt anything anymore. I'm not saying I believe everything, but I'm saying nothing surprises me anymore. So I'm open-minded to everything. If that makes me crazy, then whatever. But I heard this story, I read this story, and it just seemed really, really fishy because here's this guy who's been, again, he's one of the old school guys. He's been at the company forever, and he's really fucking smart. He knows what he's doing. He's not some entry-level, like, pipsqueak. And he saw the company going down the tubes, and he started, speaking up. And he got blackballed, basically. So he lawyered up, contacted the, federal government, started talking with the DOJ, was deposed, given his testimony. And the day before he's supposed to drive home, that was the other thing too, is he drove from Bama, South Carolina.
He drove
he
to
didn't want to fly. So the day before he's supposed to drive back, the opposing attorneys or opposing counsel asks him, "Can you stay one more day? We have some more questions to ask."
Oh my God.
That night, bang bang in the parking lot. He's dead. Found the next day in the hotel parking lot.
The woman who served him that night was like, that night he was having a couple beers. She said he seemed fine.
Seemed totally fine. His best friend talked to him, and she came out and said, let me pull this up. This was like big news that nobody reported on, except Newsweek. Speaking to ABC News for Jennifer, didn't give a surname because she's terrified. Close family friend of Barnett claimed he told her that night not to believe any reports of his suicide. She claimed he insisted, "I ain't scared of any of these guys," before adding, "but if anything happens to me, it's not suicide."
Oh my God.
How much more black and white can you get?
Oh my God.
That that happens, and then
so real quick, both guys who died had the same attorney.
Yeah, which is also
which I get, but also like, how many other guys does this attorney have? Was that just his two guys?
So the guy who, I don't know who it is, but he writes under Stathole for us. He wrote a blog. It was either last week or this weekend. And he's really good at math.
Right.
And he did basically statistics and the probability of both these people with the same claim, both winding up dead within this proximity to each other, revolving around this same basically DOJ investigation. And it was like in the trillions. It was ridiculous. So again, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're not raising an eyebrow to this, it's like, what would make you like scratch your head and be like, something's up? But after this guy passed away, a report came out that there's 10 more whistleblowers lined up, like Boeing employees that are now like stepping up, saying, like, this is fucked up. We're ready to
talk.
Yeah.
Well, at least you're not scared. I mean, hopefully we get this out there. I mean, the craziest thing was the way the second guy, Joshua Dean, 45, the way that he died makes me like.
You saw his picture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Healthy guy.
Dude.
Yeah. Not like overweight. Not like out of shape. No medical history. Like.
I mean, the thing is, I've been looking up like. The way the first guy died was a little sloppy. If you're trying to get rid of a guy,
right?
It's like he knew it was coming, hypothetically,
right.
Or Steelman, he wanted to take down Boeing so bad that he wanted to make Boeing look responsible. That's the Steelman. That's what some people were saying because about that quote you said about like, I'm not gonna kill myself. Da da da. That's freaky. But like before the second guy died, it's like, oh, like he may have just really wanted to take down Boeing. But this guy dies, and this one kind of reminds me of that reporter that died in Qatar. reminds me because it's something that is very acute, but kills them fast. Very mysterious. He died from his family was kind of silenced on the issue, and they went out to say, "I was wrong to be suspicious of the Qatari government. He absolutely had a tear in his aorta, and that's how he died." I mean, I don't know how advanced technology has gotten in spyware, but the way Joshua Dean died, who was the former quality auditor at Spirit Aerosystems, a 45-year-old, we both talked about, like, guy looked like he was in good shape, like decently low body fat, like didn't look like he's one of these guys who could have died from, COVID,
Right.
hypothetically. So on April 30th, he died from a rapidly progressing infection that led to pneumonia despite being in good health. So he had previously filed a complaint with the FAA alleging manufacturing defects in the 737 MAX. But we've been hearing a lot about bacterial resistant, from antibiotic resistant bacteria. And from the sounds of it, this was one of those things that was resistant to antibiotics and killed him ferociously fast. It is kind of easy to imagine a situation where, like, let's say this guy vapes. Like, do you think they could have, as like they work with defense contractors, there is definitely a market for people to assassinate people and make it look like it didn't happen. There's definitely a market. There's the CIA,
Dude,
Mossad,
fuck yeah.
like the Pegasus.
There's the heart attack shot
Yeah.
that everyone like knows about, and of course there is. Of course there is.
I mean, Pegasus, the software was developed by, like, I think Israeli defense forces, where they literally can just get everything on your phone by just clicking a link. I think now they just need your number to get in. That's what they got Bezos's dick pics on, which led to, like, because of Washington Post reporting on Khashoggi, so MBS, the head of Saudi Arabia, was like, we're going to ruin your life because you're ruining our life by keeping reporting on Jamal Khashoggi getting killed and
Wow,
chopped
I
up.
did not know that.
Yeah, so that's how they got him. So there is, like, a active market to develop ways to get rid of people and have them just go away. So I could see them having a bacteria that may, like, for example, the bacteria may interact with a common antibiotic that's in Neosporin, but it may be totally resistant to any type of antibiotic you would use to get rid of pneumonia or a bacterial MRSA infection in your lungs. I've never heard of MRSA being in your lungs. I've heard it being on your skin. Wrestlers and jiu-jitsu guys,
Yeah.
like, always are getting that stuff. Never heard about it being in your lungs. If they could somehow implant, like, a genetically modified bacteria, which aren't that hard to modify, just that will rapidly kill you, that isn't out the realm of possibility nowadays.
Again, I am open-minded to anything.
Yeah, even after, like, let's say you did get a guy to suicide, next time, like, we can't do another suicide. Like, that's too predictable. Like,
Right.
Let's go, what button do we have? Heart attack shot? No. You know what? Let's go with the MRSA in the lungs.
Right.
Let's go with that one.
The big thing, I went on KFC radio after John Barnett killed himself, and Feidelberg's calling me crazy, and his big thing was he was already done testifying. What good did it do Boeing to kill him at the end of his testimony? And this is before we knew that he was asked to stay another day. Not like he was gonna drop some bombshell the last day. And I said, and this is before the news came out that there's 10 other whistleblowers lined up. I said I thought it was probably like a warning, like a warning shot, it'll make regular people think twice about stepping up to, the big man. I'm not saying that that's what it was, but I don't know. Like, what do you think? What do you think Boeing was say that this, was blood on their hands, why do you think they went to those lengths?
I think the money involved is way too large. I think if there's doubt in Boeing, it's going to cause a serious economic problem across the world.
Huge.
China's going to get market share of the passenger liner and start edging in on a part of the economy that we have dominated for a century.
Mm-hmm.
And now China then takes over, diminishes another part of American production. So
it's huge. It's huge implications.
Yeah,
huge.
We need to make sure Boeing stays strong. Maybe hypothetically, you do want to fix the problems and restore confidence in Boeing, but you just need the whistleblowing to stop so that Boeing can continue to exist. On the other hand, it's an absolute coincidence. Statistically, it's crazy, but crazy things happen. And the new CEO that just got in charge,
Pope,
is just trying to make sure he gets bigger bonuses, and that's why they cut back on certain things to scale, to get more planes out the door, to improve margins.
So let me ask you this. So going back to 2022, when all this shit really hit the fan and those two jets went down, one of them, 189 passengers died on, and the other one was, hold on.
The other crash was.
Shit, I'm sorry.
Cut. Nikki Quinn. Shout out Nikki Quinn, our producer. He
157.
recently came down with not chicken pox, but what you get? Shingles. He recently came out with shingles. He can't be recording right now. Everyone, if you just DM the audio, crackheads, call on crackheads. This is the 4th episode. If you've listened to all 4, you're a crackhead. Shout out crackheads. Crackheads, give Nikki Quinn a little shout out on the audio crack. Socials, DM him, see get well, Nikki Quinn. Hopefully you get better, Nikki Quinn. Nikki Quinn is the hardest working dude. He's balls to the wall for everything, and he's hopefully, if you're listening to this, he's gotten 4 episodes out in basically 4 days.
I'm excited to meet him. He sounds like a solid guy.
Yeah.
So, okay, the first crash, 189 passengers on Indonesian airline Lion Air. And then 5 months later, a plane in Ethiopia goes down, a MAX 8, 157 people.
Jeez.
So that's almost 400 people we're talking about dead. And this is the crazy part. Boeing not only knew about the failures and what they were pushing out, and we'll get to what the failure was on both these crashes and what grounded all the planes for so long. But they threw the pilots under the bus in both cases. They said they're poorly trained pilots. The pilots in those countries don't go through the rigorous training that they do here in America. It was pilot error both times.
Oh, my God.
So talk about, for these poor fucking families, right?
Yeah.
And these poor airlines. What does that do to these airlines now? I'm not fucking flying Ethiopia Air. No fucking chance. They let guys in the sky that aren't trained. Indonesian Air, same thing, right? So they bury these companies, and then Dennis Muhlenberg, who's the then CEO, goes in front of Congress and lies. He fucking lies under oath to Congress and, says same shit, same marching orders. Then it comes out after, they ground these planes and they start looking into it. The issue is this MCAS software, which they pushed out on these MAX 8s, which was basically, so the big thing, and the big thing that pissed off, I should have mentioned this earlier. The big thing that pissed all the engineers off, the Boeing engineers, was they wanted to do, the 737 has been around forever and ever and ever. They wanted to roll out a new model plane that wasn't a 787, wasn't a big boy jumbo jet, but was, 737 is the most popular continental airline, or it flies domestically. They want to upgrade it. They want to make it more fuel efficient, lighter, more updated, better technology, all this. Boeing said that's going to cost us way more than it would if we just kept the 737 how it is and basically just upgraded the innards of it. Kind of like, I guess instead of changing a model of a car, like a new Taurus body and engine and all that, keeping the Taurus and just throwing like SE on it or limited. Yeah. So they trot out this Max 8, and it's the same 737. It's just newer looking, and it's cleaner, and it's flashier, and it has LED lighting in the overhead instead of those little fucking spotlights. And they have this new software in it called the MCAS that they never told pilots about. And what it does is when the plane's taking off and accelerating, it has these sensors in it that what happened in these instances and many other instances that the pilots were able to correct, where the whatever you call those flaps on the wings would angle themselves and push the plane down so that it wasn't accelerating. It was a huge malfunction. They didn't know why it was doing, and the pilots were like freaking out, and they had literally seconds to correct it. And the system would override them. So they would be fighting against the system, like trying to override this thing and change the throttle or whatever, and it was working against them. So it was literally like a death trap. Jeez. And they start speaking out and saying like, I don't know what the fuck happened or whatever. And Boeing's like, oh, like it's, it won't happen again, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, these two planes go down. They knew about these problems months ahead of time. Then this is all found out during the investigation. Muhlenberg doesn't go to jail. He doesn't do jail time. He's forced to retire. He takes a $65 million golden parachute out the door with him in pension and stock. I mean, dude, if you or me, somebody said this to me after reading my blog, and it was like the perfect comparison. And he said, if you or I cut the brakes to a car, or knew the brakes were cut in a car, and knowingly gave the keys to somebody else, and they crashed that car and killed themselves, we would go to jail.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Without a fucking doubt. This guy and his cohorts on the Boeing board not only knew about all this, but there were people within the company building these planes coming to them, warning them about this shit. The pilots were coming to them, warning them about this shit. And everyone looked the other way or told them to shut up. And then, 300 and something people wind up dead and nothing happens. That's the thing that is just like, what the fuck is the point of Congress, the FAA, and the DOJ? What is the point?
Do you think that Boeing purposely sold defected planes to like quote unquote third world nations because they thought if anything went wrong, they could chalk it up to, negligence and lack of infrastructure?
I don't know, man. I don't know if like they're that sadistic. I don't think they like wanted people to die. I think they just thought, this is good enough. We're making money on this. We cut costs and raised, prices, and our margin went from here to here. I think it's just greed. Laziness, cutting corners. And I mean, look what happened. I mean, it's turned into a absolute nightmare for them that I don't see a way out. I don't know what they do now.
Wow. I mean, hopefully we get more news on the topic. This is very current. Like this all happened in the past 2 weeks, which is insane. And Boeing, hopefully they respond. I want them to right the ship. But this is one of those things where maybe I honestly think Congress needs to start taking more antitrust action.
Yes.
Because I think that prevents this type of rot inside.
Competition is good for everybody.
Absolutely, especially in a Republican primary in New York's District 3. Fuck you, Mike LaPetrie. You didn't win. I just didn't make weight for the fight. Fuck you. No, but competition breeds success. Competition sharpens, iron sharpens iron. Steel sharpens steel.
It raises standards. It lowers prices. Everybody wins.
The thing is, people are like, this is late stage capitalism. This is late stage capitalism. Well, no, it's an actual, the free market is not free. The market for large liners, what's the word that I'm trying to look for? Large cruise liners, not cruise liners, but passenger planes, large passenger liners, jetliners. There's two places that produce them. There's only two firms, and one firm caters to usually only European countries, and the other firm caters to the rest of the world. It's a duopoly, and if Congress really wanted to make sure that we had better standards, maybe divide up Boeing like they did Standard Oil, maybe divide up just all the separate entities that produce different types of planes so that they can compete with each other. Their employees have more competitive.
It'll never happen, Billy. There's too much money washing each other's hands, and like I said, all these guys are on this board one day, and they're on this lobby firm or Capitol Hill the next day, and I mean these congressmen either lose incumbency or they retire and they go right into the private sector where I mean it's just so fucking toxic and corrupt and against everything our founding fathers envisioned, and it's a plague in every industry. It's not just aviation, it's everywhere. It's with everything. I don't even know where to begin to fix this stuff.
I mean, in what you're talking about, and the reason why it's such an uncompetitive field of jetliners is the same reason why we have so many uncompetitive fields with military contracting. And I think it was MacArthur was never president. It was who warned about the military-industrial complex. Eisenhower, yes.
Predicted it to a T.
To a T.
To what we're seeing today.
And the wildest thing is we see what happened in Afghanistan, right? And they pull out of Afghanistan, they leave millions of billions of dollars of equipment that they don't destroy.
Bonkers.
That is now being sold all across Asia to our enemies, to our legitimately creating hostile armed forces that could maybe one day pop up again for us to go fire more bombs, more stuff that we produce here in the United States. And unfortunately, we will profit greatly from it. But, you think a much larger sector would profit greatly from it, but it's mostly, mostly 1% of America, and mostly politicians, mostly lobbyists who are making all the funds from all this action. Very little of it actually goes down to the engineers and people who produce. You like to think like the blue-collar manufacturing jobs, highly skilled manufacturing jobs are the true benefactors of why someone may be like, we make money from war, it's good for the country. Maybe it trickles all the way down to all these people that it employs. No, it stays at the top.
Yep.
And I mean, it is a crazy situation that we're seeing, and there hopefully will be a solution in the future, but hopefully we just shed some light on the true information behind this case, because it's not that reported. It is not that widely spread being reported. So hopefully we shed light on it, and hopefully we can start bringing more of these types of topics to Audio Crack.
Yeah, this was awesome, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks
on
for
such short notice. Audio
Hopefully
Crack,
I don't wind up dead in a car.
Do you think
somewhere.
they kill you or kill me?
I don't know, man, but I don't want any. I don't want any of that. I love my life, so if I do end up mysteriously dead, it was not me.
I know I just got kicked off another podcast, but I'm very optimistic about this one. And also my campaign ended. I'm very optimistic on life. I got a lot of stuff to look forward to. I got a dog too.
Good disclaimer.
Who's gonna feed the dog? I always wake up in the morning to feed the dog.
No, this was good shit.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
Thanks
Appreciate
for having me on.
Like, subscribe to Audio Crack. You know, hopefully we fix some of the audio issues a lot of you guys have been complaining about. We're working with a skeleton crew who has. Why do I keep forgetting the name of the disease? Because I want to say scabies,
Shingles.
but it's shingles. Yeah, because it's
Just think about your roof.
Roof shingles. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for keep supporting, sticking through. Just hang in there. This, you know, if you didn't like a couple of the episodes, I don't blame people who are like, George Santos was your first guest. We try things. We try different things. We try to, get something shocking out there to kickstart this new podcast. But really awesome guests coming tomorrow, and another one coming hopefully early next week.
I'm excited for this next one. Did you find him or did he find you?
I found him.
Nice.
So, Jack, we're also having another one tomorrow that's a little more current events. It might be a little more, it's Jack Mack. Jack Mack's coming on tomorrow, and hopefully that'll be out by Thursday if you're listening to it on Wednesday. And then hopefully the next one's coming out on Tuesday of next week, and we're going to get a better release schedule. Just wanted to get a body of work on the table. Hopefully it gets good listenership, and I can ask for more resources, and then have a consistent schedule of when it's going to come out. Tell me what days work for you guys. We'll put a poll out. Best days for it to come out. But thank you guys for listening. I hope you're appreciating the product and the crack. And thanks for listening to Audio Crack, crackheads.